Okay, today we're going to do a tutorial on a baby bump or pregnant cake. So what I've done here is I've got two 6-inch pudding shape for the boobs, and then what I've done is I made a normal 10-inch round cake, cut it in half so we can put a bit of buttercream and jam in the middle, and then I just shaped it round just to get that kind of definition of the belly. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to take some buttercream and we're just going to place the buttercream a little bit on the board, just where we want it to stick. It's just a bit, it just gives the cake a bit of something to stick onto. And as you can see as well, I actually cut the tops off the pudding bowl shaped cake so that it's a nicer finish. So we just push them together, and then what I'm going to do as well, I'm just going to pop a little bit of buttercream here, because we are going to buttercream anyway, but I cut it in half. I cut a little notch out of there, out of this one, just a little notch so that they fit in together. Okay, and then we'll turn the board around and we're going to do exactly the same now here, because it's only just to glue it on, so you don't need a lot. And then what I've done is I just run the palette knife just to give it a little bit of a more rougher edge. So there's our cakes already on. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take our top off and I'm going to just place it there for now, and I'm just going to get some jam, and I'm just going to place a little bit of jam. We don't want too much, we don't want this cake, the bump, to be too big, so I'm just going to place some jam all around the cake. Okay, what I'll do is I'll pause the video while I'm jamming up, and then I'll get back to you once we're ready to do the next stage. So here, what I've done is I've just put some buttercream on. I didn't put a load on because it's cut, it's quite delicate. So I'm just going to place our top on our icing, and I'm just going to go and pause the video so I can wash my hands. So we've got our top on now, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start icing, buttercream icing, but I'm going to start with the big one first. And we're just going to, like we normally do, we're just going to crumb coat the cake. Just carry on buttercreaming as we go along. Making sure we dip in the hot water, because the hot water helps the buttercream spread as well.
Okay, so what Danielle's got here is some black icing and some blue icing.
It's like a bluey green.
A bluey green colour, and some white icing that she's just going to need to make it a bit more pliable. And then we can start covering our cake. So much like before, you just need to work the icing to get it nice and soft before you go too far. And at the moment, our cake is in the fridge with the butter icing hardened up nicely. So shortly we can take that out of the fridge once our icing's ready, and we can start layering that on the cake. So what Danielle's doing at the moment is just rolling out a bit of icing, and this is going to be for a foot that is basically an imprint on the tummy. So this is like underneath the icing. You'll see shortly at the moment. So at the moment she's rolled this quite a lot thicker than you would do normal icing for covering a cake. You'll see that it's probably 3/4 of a centimetre thick maybe, and that will enable us to get a nice imprint in the fondant that covers it. Much like we've got feet cupcakes here, these feet are a little bit too small to go on our cake, but we're going to have a go at doing this freehand. So what we're going to do is we've got our rolled fondant. We're just going to see how we go here. Make this big enough to look like a foot. Probably need a little bit bigger than that, so I'm just going to try that again. Just going to go freehand around and we'll just see what happens. We only need one foot here. And if you're not confident doing this, then you can buy cutters. Or you can try it on paper first. So all we're looking for to begin with is the foot part, and then what we can do is, and you can see here how thick it is, it's probably nearer a centimetre thick there. And now we can do our little toes. So we need, like on this cupcake, we've got the toes gradually getting bigger. So we can create little dots, little balls of fondant. In fact, what I'll probably do is just cut a bit of fondant out, and I'll tear and shape these by hand. So I'm just going to take a little roll of fondant. Now obviously bear in mind they need to be fairly thick to get a nice imprint. But we can't do them too big either, because otherwise they'll be out of proportion. So I'm just gradually going to create little balls of fondant that are getting bigger and bigger. And you'll see at the end what we've got. Each one doesn't need to be massively bigger than the other, just a little bit each time. I'll show you these balls in a moment. All I'm doing is just tearing these off and just rolling and moulding them with my hand. Okay, so and before we go too far, we'll try these on the cake, but what you can see here, if I just lay them out right, you can see that we've got 5 balls of fondant, and we'll shape those as we put them on the cake. So now we can put this out of the way and we're ready to get our cake out and put the footprint or put the foot on the cake. Okay, so we're now ready to put our foot on the cake. We're going to position that about here, I think. Got that roughly in position. And then we can start putting the toes in place, like so. Making sure you get your toes in the right order, obviously. And then we've got our last one on the end. And so as you can see there, what you end up with. And now when we put the fondant over the top, we can press the fondant in place and it will give us our imprint. So we'll get ready with that now. Daniel, just rolling out our fondant now, and this is to go over the top of the cake. It's got to be fairly long, this one, because we're draping it over the whole of our carved 10-inch cake and then the smaller rounds of cake. Last thing you want to do is leave it short and then have to take it off and bin that bit of fondant and start again, because obviously there's over a kilo of fondant here, for example. It takes a while to colour it all up and stuff, so it's worth just making sure you've got plenty of fondant. Any excess can always be saved for later. Or in this case, we've got some fondant to use for a rose that we have to make to put on top, or a flower to put on top, which we'll show you shortly. Okay, so it looks like now we've got enough fondant, so we can now lift the fondant with our rolling pin, and what we'll probably do here is start from the back, or we're going to start from the front. Okay, so I'm just going to roll out on top. We want to leave enough to be able to drape, which is what we're doing here. So you can see that we've left plenty around the edges, and Danielle will just now carefully work that out. So she's just working around the edges like normal, just tapering in the middle a little bit where we're going to put our bow, and then working around where the foot is to get our indent. So you can see here that we're beginning to get our indent of our foot, and what we can do is nearer the end we can come around with a little tool and just get the indents a little bit more. We'll concentrate on getting the majority of the fondant in place first, and cut around the outsides to get rid of the excess, and then we can get our fondant, our pleats in place. So you can see that Daniel's just carefully cutting around and removing the excess. And then we'll do that all the way around the outside. making sure to leave plenty. And you can see there that we're getting our body shape there. And so what once looked like just bits of cake is now beginning to look more and more like our themed pregnant lady cake. So to continue working with your hands and the knife to bring the fondant into the edge of the base of the cake, making sure you get your definition right. Just doing little bits at a time here, because if you make a mistake it's going to be very hard to correct, so it's far easier just to take your time. Right? Okay, so I'm going to cut the excess off here at the bottom, so we're just smoothing the edge off here. So what Dan's going to do while I just get rid of this. So we're just making sure that trying to get our toes defined here, like so. We may not even use the tool, we'll just see how we go. Try not to push down too hard. So what we're doing here is we're going to create a ruffle effect with a strip of fondant, and to do that we just start off with a bit of fondant and then turn it on its side like this, and we can create our ruffles just by bringing the fondant together, and then once we bring it to the cake we'll just stretch it out a little bit. So this piece is going to go on the opposite side of the cake. I'll show you in a second. So we're going to bring this around this other side, and then we'll meet in the middle of the piece. So we'll just get this roughly right here. And now we can just trim off with a knife, just tailor that in a little bit diagonally, like so. And we'll trim off this excess at the bottom, and then we'll just infill here with a piece, so we can probably just ruffle this one little here in a moment. And then what we'll do is we'll put a piece in the middle here, and we'll have that going down onto the edge of the board. So what we've done here is just created a bit of a ruffle around the edge, and the next bit now we've got to do, we've got some ribbon, black ribbon to put across the middle. Just cutting a strip of ribbon, or a strip of fondant for our ribbon. And what we're going to do with that is just tuck the ends in. We'll cut those into place in a moment. Like so. We'll just place a little bit of water. Just to hold this in place. And then we're going to have 2 further strips of ribbon, and then a little rose on top of that, which we'll see in a moment. So we'll cut a piece about that big, yeah, maybe about there or something, and then we'll half that, like so. And then we'll lay those on the cake, just slightly off to the right, or just coming out of the middle maybe. We'll do it coming out of the middle like so. Might look better just off a little bit. So, and then what we'll do here is, well, adjust that a little bit, like so, and then we'll have our flower going on top. Then when we come to stick this on, we can just ruffle this slightly, like so. And then we can place our rose on top there. So we'll stick that in place. Remember to get our ruffle in at the end there. So we just want a bit of water on the end just to hold it in place. So to make this rose, we're just using some balls of fondant, and a little polythene envelope. So we've got 6 little balls and 1 longer bit. This is just a piece of polythene that we've cut open. For the longer piece, we just push it down and spread it out, and then we create a nice rounded bit with the ball to create the petals for the flower. Just using the edge of the thumb to create the petal effect. Then what you do is with the longer piece, roll it, and that's the centre of the flower. And with the first piece, you wrap round, like so. And start the next piece just slightly offset from that. And wrap that round. And just carry on doing that to build the flower up. Until you've got the rows, and with the edges of these you just bring them down a little bit, just make it look a bit more natural. Chop the end off, and then depending on how big that is, we can see if that's enough. Here we've got our flower in place. So here we've got our roses in place, our 3 roses, and now what Danielle's working on is just a little badge to go on the bottom of the dress. So she's got a round of fondant cut out with a round cutter, and I'm going to write, that's what's going to have the message on it. What we've got here is an edible black pen and a round of circular fondant we cut out with a cutter, and we've used the pen to write on the fondant. We're going to place that onto our cake, so I'm just going to get a bit of water, and I'm just going to place that where we want it. Don't need too much, so then we can just at a slight bit of an angle, like so. I'll go with the other angle actually. Like that. Danielle's done here is rolled out a black strip of fondant. We're just wetting around the outside. And then we're going around the outside with the fondant and sticking that in place. Like so. And that gives quite a nice effect there. There is the finished baby bump cake with our footprint and our little rose flowers there.